African legend. There is a place where the sky stretches so wide it seems to swallow the earth whole. Welcome to the Hidden Voice, where stories speak louder than faces. Tonight, we invite you on a faceless journey into the shadows, where mystery meets meaning and every word is chosen to stir your soul. This is more than a live stream. It's a deep listening experience, so sit back, close your eyes, let the voice guide you. In the center of this endless savanna stands a single ancient tree, tall, proud, wide as a hut, its bark scarred by time. The baobab. They say it has stood there for over 1,000 years, watching generations come and go. The people of the nearby village never built too close. They respected it, feared it. Listen to it. They say the tree can whisper, not with words, but with memory. And one night, a boy named Kai heard it. He was just 12, small, barefoot, orphaned by a fire that had taken his parents, his home, and everything he knew. The village took him in, but no one truly saw him. He was a shadow, a ghost in daylight, a child of sorrow. One night, under the heavy moon, he wandered into the plains alone, following the wind, drawn by a soundless voice. The baobab stood before him like a sleeping giant, its roots twisted, strong like the arms of warriors. Its branches reached toward the stars like prayers. Kai sat at its base and wept. No words, no screams, just the silent sobbing of a soul cracking under its own weight. Then, a breeze. It moved only through the tree. Not the grass, not the air, just the tree. The leaves rustled not like wind, but like whispers. And Kai heard it, not in his ears, but in his bones. "You are not alone." He froze. "They walk with you still. Your father, your mother. Your blood is not broken." Suddenly, images began to form in his mind. A woman with warm eyes, his mother, kneeling before this very tree. A man with broad shoulders, his father, carving a small mark into the bark. Kai rose and touched the same place. The bark was smooth, warm, alive. He closed his eyes. The whispers grew louder, voices of ancestors he had never met. Songs in a language he didn't know but understood. Stories flooded him, of warriors who protected villages, of queens who walked barefoot to meet the stars, of healers who spoke to the winds. And in that moment, Kai understood. He was not the end of a broken line. He was the beginning of a remembered one. He stayed until dawn. When he returned, his walk was different. His head high, his silence deeper, not of pain, but of knowing. He became a storyteller. Every full moon, he brought other children to the baobab and told them what it had told him, not word for word, but story by story. He became the keeper of memory. And the baobab, it still stands, it still whispers, but only to those who are ready to remember. What stories live inside you that you've never spoken out loud? Whose memory do you carry in your bones? Drop A or I remember in the chat if that story touched something in you. The desert prayer, faith-based. The desert is not always a place on a map. Sometimes it's a season of the soul, where your prayers feel like echoes and your footsteps feel like mistakes. But some say God speaks loudest in places where nothing else does. This is the story of a man named Malik. Once a preacher, now a wanderer. He had lost everything, his church, his family, his voice. Not to war, not to crime, but to silence. A scandal he didn't cause took root in whispers that spread like wildfire. And the people he'd once comforted turned away from him. Even those closest to him stopped looking him in the eyes. Shame grew louder than truth. So he walked into the heat, into the dryness, into the ache. For 40 days, Malik crossed a desert, not for survival, but for meaning. He had no map, no destination, just a broken heart and an old, worn Bible in his pack. He didn't pray like he used to. He didn't shout scripture like in the pulpit. He just whispered when he could. "Are you still there?" On the 21st day, Malik collapsed. No water, no food, just dust and regret. He looked up at the sky, blank and blue, unbothered. Then the wind came. Soft, gentle, almost like breath. It flipped the pages of his Bible open beside him. He didn't even have the strength to lift it, but one verse caught his tired, cracking eyes. Psalm 121, 1-2. "I lift up my eyes to the hills. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth." Tears that hadn't come in weeks rolled down his cheeks like rain on stone. He didn't see angels, he didn't hear thunder, but he felt it. Peace quiet. And then, a cloud. A single small cloud in a sky that had been bone dry for weeks. He stood. Somehow, and just beyond the ridge, he saw it. An old shepherd's well. Still flowing, still cold, still waiting. Malik drank, washed, and wept again, but not from pain. From mercy. That night, under a canopy of stars, he prayed again. Not to be rescued, not to be restored, but to remember that even in silence, God had not left him. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. Isaiah 43:2. Even in the wilderness, I prepare a table. Psalm 78:19. Have you ever walked through a desert season? Type in the chat if you've ever prayed with nothing but hope. Type, I'm still walking if you're in it right now. Just know, silence is not absence. The power of ancestors. Spoken reflection. Have you ever wondered whose blood beats inside you? We live in a world obsessed with forward, with what's next, what's new, what's trending. But there is a sacred strength in looking back, not to dwell, but to remember. Every step you take, every breath you draw, you are walking with the weight of those who came before you. You may never know their names, you may never see their faces, but their stories live in your silence. Their strength flows through your weakness. You are someone's dream fulfilled. There's a saying among the Akan of Ghana, the river that forgets its source will dry up. When you forget your ancestors, your purpose begins to fade. Not because the past controls you, but because the past informs you. There were women who endured fire just so you could breathe free. There were men who kept secrets in songs so that truth would survive. There were children who held on to hope even when they had no food, no roof, no reason. And you are their echo and their answer. A girl once asked her grandmother, "Why do you always light a candle before you cook?" The old woman replied, "So they know I still remember." My mother, her mother, all of them. I cook with them in the room. That girl grew up. Years later, her own kitchen was full of noise. Kids running, music playing, meals burning. But before anything, she still lit that candle, a flame for the faces she never met, but would never forget. Right now, in the chat, type the initials of someone who came before you, someone who paved the way, even if they never knew it. I carry their courage. I carry their silence. I carry their songs. I carry their survival. I am not alone. I remember. And don't forget to share the live. The Lost Letter, real life inspired. Some memories fade. Some memories hide and some wait to be found. This is the story of Leah, a woman in her early 40s who inherited a box when her father passed. Dusty, taped shut, buried under years of silence. She almost threw it away. But something told her, look closer. Inside were yellowed photos, a few old church bulletins, and at the bottom, an envelope. It was addressed to her. Not in her father's handwriting, but in her mother's. A mother she never got to know, because Leah's mother died giving birth to her. The letter had never been opened, never given. It read, "My dearest child, if you're reading this, then I didn't make it to meet you. But that doesn't mean I don't know you. I've felt your kicks, your turns, your heartbeat inside mine. You are brave, you are wanted. You are already loved." Leah paused. Tears made the ink blur. She had grown up believing her mother's death was somehow her fault. No one had said it, but no one had told her otherwise. The letter continued, "If the world ever tries to make you small, remember, you were born from sacrifice. You are not a mistake, you are a miracle." She held the letter to her chest and wept. In that moment, decades of shame melted. Grief softened, love spoke. That letter, forgotten, folded, and hidden for years, found its voice. And in doing so, it gave Leah hers. Have you ever found something that changed the way you saw your past? If this story touched something in you, drop it in the chat. Maybe it's time you wrote yourself a letter. Or maybe it's time to forgive someone who never got to say what they meant. If you're feeling these stories, don't keep them to yourself. Like this stream. Share it with someone who needs healing. And follow for more stories that whisper in the quiet places. We are building something sacred here. A community of listeners, of feelers, of voices from the shadows. The voice behind the wall. Spoken word. There's a voice behind the wall. No louder than breath, no clearer than fog. But it's there. It's the voice you hush when you smile too wide. The one you bury beneath makeup, hustle, and hashtags. The one that asks, do they see the real me? Would they still stay if I spoke? Am I too much or not enough? This voice doesn't scream, it whispers. At 2:37 a.m. at red lights, in bathroom stalls, it says things you don't want to hear, but need to. I once met a woman who hadn't cried in 11 years. Not because she had no pain, but because the world taught her that tears are weakness and strength means silence. She built walls of laughter, painted windows with Instagram filters, put "fine" on repeat like a chorus. But behind that wall, the voice never stopped speaking. And one night, just one, she listened. She turned off her phone, sat on the floor, and said out loud, "I'm tired." The wall cracked. And through it came all the tears, all the "I don't knows," all the "help me, please," all the parts of her she locked away in case they made her unlovable. But guess what? The voice didn't break her. It brought her back. Let this be your permission. You are not too heavy. You are not too broken. You are not alone. There is a voice behind your wall. And maybe, just maybe, it's not your weakness speaking. Maybe it's the truest part of you trying to come home. If you've ever hidden behind a wall, type "I hear it" in the chat, or drop a emoji. We're breaking walls tonight, not building them. Feeling that? Don't scroll, don't hold it in. Share this stream. Someone you know is behind their own wall, and they need to know they're not the only one. Follow if you feel seen. Like if you're breathing softer now, we're just getting started. The Potter's Clay, redemption story. But we are the clay, and you are the potter. We are all the work of your hand. Isaiah 64:8. In a small, quiet village tucked between dusty hills and wild olive trees, there lived a potter named Amari. He wasn't famous. His shop had no sign, just an open door and the scent of fresh earth. People would pass by, glancing in to see shelves filled with bowls, cups, and jars, none of them perfect. Some were lopsided, some had strange swirls in the glaze. Some bore cracks, carefully sealed with gold. But that's what made them beautiful. Because Amari had a rule: I don't throw the broken ones away. One day a traveler came into the village, tired, dust-covered, wounded, not just on the outside, but in the soul. She had been wandering for years, searching, escaping, trying to forget who she used to be. She entered Amari's shop. "Do you fix things here?" she asked, holding out a shattered bowl wrapped in cloth. Amari didn't even flinch. "Sit," he said. "Let's begin." The woman watched as he took the broken pieces and spread them out on his table. He didn't rush, didn't judge. "Where did this bowl come from?" he asked. "It was a gift," she said. "From someone who loved me before I ruined everything." He nodded, not with pity, but with recognition. "I see," he said. "Then we'll honor that love, even in its brokenness." He pulled out a small jar of powder, gold dust, and mixed it into a paste. "Kintsugi," he whispered. "It's the art of mending with gold." We don't hide the breaks. We highlight them, because the history of the piece becomes part of its beauty. As Amari worked, the woman began to speak. Not just about the bowl, but about her life. She spoke of betrayal, of shame, of trying to become someone else just to survive. She thought Amari would stop, that he'd frown, that he'd say she was too much. But he just kept smoothing gold into the cracks. "Isn't it fragile now?" she asked. Amari looked up and smiled. "No, now it's stronger where it was broken." Hours passed, maybe more. Time seemed to slow. And when he was finished, the bowl gleamed. Every break shimmered with light. It no longer looked like it once did. It looked better. Not because the damage was erased, but because the healing had been honored. He handed it back to her. "This is you now," he said. Tears welled in her eyes. "It's still cracked," she whispered. "Yes," he said, "but it's whole." There is a potter who does not throw you away, even when you've shattered, even when the world calls you ruined. He kneels down, gathers your pieces, and fills your cracks with gold. If you've ever felt too broken to be used, if you've ever believed your scars disqualified you, type "mend me" in the chat. Or drop it to light a candle for your healing journey. Let the community remind you, your cracks are not the end, They are the beginning. This stream is your reminder. You are not disposable. You are not damaged goods. You are still being formed, like the stream. Share it with someone who needs hope. And follow. Because we tell stories that help us remember who we are. We are clay, yes, but in the hands of the right potter, we are masterpieces in progress. The House with No Mirrors. Modern parable. There once was a house at the edge of the city. It was old, not broken, but untouched. People said it had strange rules. The first, no mirrors allowed. None. Not in the bathrooms, not in the halls, not even in the bedrooms. The woman who lived there, her name was Rena, was quiet. Kind, a little sad, always busy. She kept her curtains drawn, her head down, her heart guarded. Visitors came and went, delivery men, neighbors, not old friends, but no one stayed long. Until one day, a child came to the door. A little girl, maybe 6 years old, dragging a suitcase behind her and a backpack full of drawings. She looked up and said, "My mama said you keep people. I want to be kept." Rena stared for a long time. Then she stepped aside. The girl moved in. Days passed, then weeks. The girl, Amaya, was bright, talkative, always drawing faces in her notebook. Smiling ones, sad ones, monster ones, even ones with no eyes. But every time she asked for a mirror, Rena would shake her head. "Mirrors lie," she'd whisper. "They only show what you fear, not what you are." Amaya didn't understand, but she stopped asking until one rainy night when thunder cracked and the power went out. Rena lit a candle. The flame flickered across the kitchen, and for the first time, Amaya caught sight of her reflection in the glass of the oven door. She stared, then gasped, "Is that what I look like?" Rena turned sharply. "Don't look too long," she warned. "But I thought I had my mama's eyes," Amaya said. "I don't. You do," Rena whispered. But not all things are visible in glass. The next morning, Amaya was gone. She had taken her drawings, her suitcase, and left behind one note. "I want to see who I am." Rena didn't cry. She just walked to the basement. In a box behind old blankets and dust-covered memories was a mirror. The only one she hadn't thrown away. She unwrapped it, stared at it for the first time in 20 years. And there she was, older, tired, but still her. Behind the wrinkles, behind the pain, behind the years of hiding. "This is me," she whispered. "And I am still here." Spoken reflection. Some of us have been living in houses with no mirrors. Not literal ones, but emotional ones. We avoid seeing ourselves. We hide behind busyness, filters, or silence. Why? Because we're afraid we won't like what we see. But healing, real healing, starts when we stop running. It starts when we look, really look, and say, "This is me, I'm still here. I'm still worth being seen." If you've ever struggled to see your own worth, if you've ever avoided your reflection, physical or emotional, type, "I see me" in the chat, or drop a mirror emoji. This is your space to be seen without shame. Someone out there is still living in a house with no mirrors. They've forgotten who they are. They've stopped looking. Share this stream with them. Help them remember. Follow if these stories speak to something real in you. And like the stream, so this voice reaches someone who's ready to stop hiding. We are not what the world labels us. We are not our mistakes. We are not broken beyond repair. We are still here. And we are still worth being seen. The man at the bus stop. Mystery encounter. It was 3:12 a.m. The city was asleep, or pretending to be. Rain fell in a steady whisper. Streetlights flickered. And the last bus of the night rolled up to the corner of Gale and 7th. On the bench sat Maya, soaked, shaking, mascara-streaked, suitcase at her feet. She hadn't planned to be there, but she couldn't go back. And she didn't know where else to go. Everything felt like too much. The silence, the storm, the ache in her chest she didn't have words for. Then he sat down, a man, older, quiet, wearing a brown coat too thin for the weather. He didn't look at her, didn't speak. Just sat, watching the rain like it was telling him something he needed to remember. Maya shifted uncomfortably. Then, for no reason at all, she blurted out, "I ruined everything." The words surprised her. She hadn't meant to say them. But once they were out, they echoed louder than the thunder. The man didn't flinch. He just nodded slowly and said, "Ruins are where the best stories begin." She blinked at him. "What?" He finally turned, and there was something in his eyes. Not pity, not judgment, just presence. "People think broken things should be thrown out," he said. "But some things aren't broken, just shaken loose from the wrong place." She frowned. "You a preacher or something?" He chuckled. "Once. Before I learned to listen more than talk." They sat in silence. Then he reached into his coat and pulled out a small crumpled paper. Handed it to her without a word. It read, "You are not lost. You're just on a detour. And even now, heaven hasn't stopped tracking you." Her hands trembled. "Did you write this?" "Not exactly," he said. "It was given to me at a bus stop. Long time ago." Before she could respond, the bus pulled up, headlights beaming like a spotlight on every regret she carried. She turned to ask him something, anything, but he was gone. No footsteps, no sound, just gone. She got on the bus, sat by the window, clutched the note like it was air. And for the first time in days, she didn't cry. Not because she wasn't hurting, but because something inside whispered, "You're going to be okay. This isn't the end." And she believed it. Sometimes the most powerful words come from strangers, people placed in our path for a moment. A message, a memory. You never know who's sitting next to you, or what role you're playing in their story. Maybe you're the one needing the reminder, or maybe you're the one sent to deliver it. Have you ever had a random encounter that felt like more than coincidence? If so, type "I remember" in the chat, or drop an emoji for every divine detour you've survived. Someone out there feels like they've missed their stop, like they've gone too far to turn around. But they haven't. Share this stream with someone who needs a sign. Follow if you believe stories can still save people, and like if you've ever found truth in unexpected places. The voice in the shadows is real, and sometimes it shows up at 3:12 a.m. in the rain on a broken bench, next to a stranger who just happens to know exactly what to say. The box beneath the floorboards. Emotional mystery. The house had been empty for 13 years. When Elijah inherited it, he didn't plan to stay long. Just enough time to clear out the dust, sell it, and never look back. But something about it called to him. The smell of old wood, the way the stairs groaned like they remembered him, the quiet, like it was holding its breath. He didn't remember much from when he was a child, only that his mother had cried a lot, and his father had left, and that no one had ever opened the room at the end of the hall. On the second night, he found the box. Not in the attic, not in a closet, but beneath the floorboards of that locked room, the one his mother used to disappear into. It was small, wooden, bound with an old cloth, no lock, just dust and time. His hands shook as he lifted it. Inside were letters, photos, and a worn-out cassette tape with the words, "For Elijah. When you're ready." He stared at it for hours. He wasn't ready. He was never ready. But as the wind howled outside and rain tapped at the windows, he slid the tape into an old recorder and pressed play. "Baby, if you're hearing this, it means I'm gone." It was his mother, older. Fragile, but steady. "I know I didn't say everything I should have. I didn't know how to. There was so much I tried to protect you from, including myself." This room, the one I always kept locked, it wasn't just where I cried. It was where I wrote, where I prayed, where I broke. Elijah sat frozen. "You were just a boy, but I saw how you carried things no child should carry. I want you to know none of it was your fault. Not the silence, not your father leaving, not the way I faded," her voice cracked. "I left this box so you'd know you come from love, even if it was buried under pain. If you ever feel lost, come back here, not to the house, to your heart. There's light in you, Elijah. Even the shadows can't take it." Click. The tape stopped, and so did the years he'd spent trying not to feel. Elijah cried, for the first time since he was 11. Not because he was weak, but because the truth had finally found him. That box didn't hold memories, it held freedom. So many of us bury things under emotional floorboards. Hurt, regret. Questions we're afraid to ask. Words we were never told. But healing begins the moment we're brave enough to open the box, to sit with what's inside instead of running from it. If there's a box you've buried emotionally, something you haven't faced, type "I'm opening it" in the chat, or drop a emoji. You don't have to tell the story, just say you're ready to heal. Someone out there has buried their past so deep, they've forgotten who they were before the pain. Share this story with them, Let them hear the voice they've been too afraid to listen to. Follow if you're opening your own box. Like if this one hit home, the past doesn't have to haunt you. Sometimes it's the very place your healing begins, even if it's beneath the floorboards. Whether you stayed for 10 minutes or the full 2 hours, your presence meant everything. You were part of a sacred circle, a space where stories breathe and broken hearts exhale. Tonight, we didn't just tell stories, we witnessed souls. We remembered that even in shadows, the voice still speaks. Follow this channel if this felt like home, because I'll be back with more stories that dig deep. And don't flinch. Until then, stay soft, stay grounded, and never forget, even the quietest voice has power. Good night, and thank you for listening to The Hidden Voice.